Hey, how's it going? My name's John. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about the RimX in detail. The last couple videos have been kind of rushed, trying to get things together to shoot the Arkansas Precision Challenge Series finale, and haven't really spent a lot of time talking about what specifically is in this build and my thoughts and opinions, so that's what we're going to do today. Before we get too far into it, I want to make sure to highlight I paid for everything on this rifle. No sponsorships, no discounts, no nothing. It's been all me. So my thoughts and opinions are coming from somebody that spent their own money on these products and not that of a sponsored shooter. We've got a Zermatt Arms RimX Action with a Radix Precision pre-fit barrel. It's an ace blank 16 twist, got his own custom chamber in it. It's got a 25-inch finished length, and I think it's a 1.2, just bull barrel profile. I wanted it truck axle, basically. It's got my XTR3, the 5.5 to 30 by 56 on top. This is the same scope that I've shot all year. It's sitting in an ACC Premier Gen 1. Picked this up used for a pretty good deal. We've got the full set of internal weights. I just went with the solid weight because I wanted to add some rigidity to the forend, and it is stiffened up the forearm very nicely. We've got our Accutech bipod on the front. We've got our TriggerTech Diamond 2-stage as the trigger. I think that's really about it. I've got a Shooter's Global level on this side. I also still have my backup bubble level on the scope. I like redundancy when possible. As far as initial impressions, if you want the TLDR because you don't want to watch the whole video, it's great. It balances better, largely attributed to the 25-inch bull barrel. The action is smoother. I've had less feeding issues with the RimX. I've had no extraction issues. I've not had any issues in terms of the rounds getting ahead of the bolt, breaking extractors. I keep an eye on the extractor and it still looks brand new, and I've got well over 1,000 rounds on the rifle at this point. I think one of the biggest benefits, action to action, you know, because if you take all the other accessories out of it and the extra weight from the barrel and all of that, is just the smoothness of operation. The RimX Action, I mean, it's insane how smooth this bolt is versus the Bergara. If the bolt was closed and I tried to lift it, it would knock the rifle over because of how much pressure was required to lift the bolt. That doesn't happen on the RimX. So what that allows me to do is I can be on target on a prop and I can manipulate the bolt and not have to come off the gun just to manipulate it and get the, you know, get the round extracted and the next round chambered or whatever's going on. You know, in terms of functionality and performance, there are people that like to poke fun at PRS shooters, specifically the rimfire guys. Why do you need a 23-pound rifle to shoot a 22 bullet? I'm not toting this thing through the woods to go shoot squirrels or what have you, but it's a purpose-built rifle. I think it's important to keep in mind what you're trying to do with your tools when you're trying to figure out what tools you need. At its core, it is a competition rifle, and that's what it's built for, and that's what it's good at. If I had to describe it in one word, I think it would probably be consistent. The bolt throw is consistent, the chambering is consistent, the trigger is consistent, the groups are consistent, the way the rifle feels on the prop is consistent, and that's not something that I always got with the Bergara. It's been a pretty nice changeover coming from that platform to this platform. I want to dig in on that consistency piece a little bit and talk about group sizes. 50 yards averaging 0.3 and a half, you know, 0.3, 0.4, somewhere in there. 100 yards, 0.6, 0.7, and then 200 yards around or just under 2 inches. I want to say I am not a good group shooter on paper, but the performance I've gotten out of it is I'm plenty happy with. You know, the Bergara, it would shoot closer to 0.4, 0.5 at 50. I don't know that I ever shot consistent groups under an inch with it at 100 yards. It was closer to 1.25 inches. At 200 yards, it was like 2.5 or 3 inches on a good day. And I still was able to take that rifle, compete well enough and do well enough to get to nationals with it. So this is definitely a significant step up. I know there's probably people that can shoot way better groups than that with their rifles, but I've been really pleased with the performance out of this one. The other part of that consistency piece is reliability, right? Consistently reliable. I haven't had any feeding issues, knock on wood, with this gun, and I've fed it all kinds of stuff. Ely match, different flavors of Lapua, from Pistol King to Center X to long range to super long range, RWS, Norma TAC match, DCI standard. It's been great. It doesn't matter what I feed it. The magazines are set up correctly. It extracts well. And I think that's something that I really want to touch on, is making sure if you have one of these or you're looking at getting one of these platforms, make sure you take the time to set the magazines up. Maybe that's a video that we can do later. I'm not really equipped to do it right now, but it didn't take long. It's just based on feel, you know? So if I can do it, you can do it. It's not that hard. And if you're having issues with feeding or extraction, I'm willing to bet your magazine height isn't set correctly. I think the most asked question that I've gotten since I've kind of started switching platforms is, how does the RimX compare to the Bergara? And I think it's important to frame that discussion in the right kind of light, because just the RimX action, no barrel, trigger, anything, is $1,100 MSRP, $1,050, I think, somewhere around there. You can get a whole Bergara gun for $1,100. Stock, barrel action, trigger, the whole shebang. Definitely two different levels of equipment. That being said, yes, the RimX is better, right? Of course, it should, for being that much more expensive. I'm not saying that the Bergara is bad though. I think the biggest difference, and we kind of touched on this already, between the two is the feel of the action and the downrange performance, you know? And I think you could get a Bergara to shoot equal to something like this if you spent the money to put a custom barrel on it. It's definitely an option for those that are interested. The thing that I like about the RimX is how the action feels. And I didn't do anything to it. The Smith hasn't touched it. I grease it like I'm supposed to, and I shoot it. That's it. It comes down to design features on the bolt and the action itself. I'm not a machinist, I'm not an engineer, I'm not gonna pretend to understand how that stuff works, but just looking at the differences between the Bergara and the RimX, it kind of makes sense. Specifically, the bolt itself has angled relief cuts on the lugs, which allow a smoother close on the bolt. You don't get that immediate hard bolt close like you do on the Bergara. And it's funny because on the Bergara, the ears of the lugs started to wear in so that they naturally developed a little bit of that curve. You know, talking about pros and cons, the RimX has a lot of pros, but I think the biggest con is probably cost, right? You're gonna have to have a lot more cash invested into a setup like this than you would the Bergara just to get out and start shooting. If you're trying to compete and really take things to the next level, I think it's a logical progression. I don't regret spending this money at all. I'm very much in love with this rifle. I think one downside, I wasn't used to shooting a 25-inch barrel. That's a lot more length to have to move out of the way and then back into barricades or props or windows or whatever. So I used to be able to cheat because with the Bergara, the barrel was short enough, it was inset inside the forearm on the chassis. That is obviously not the case anymore. So I have to be very careful about how quickly I'm going in and out of, say, windows, so I don't smash the crown of the barrel into the side of the window or something like that and damage the rifle. There's gives and takes. I you know, weighed everything out, and I've been happy with my purchase. One of the last things I want to touch on is kind of how we ended up here, because I did own the Bergara, you know. Wouldn't it have been more cost effective to get that rebarreled and shoot that versus doing a total platform switch and coming to the RimX? Not really, actually. So, you know, I own the Bergara already. Figure $500 for a barrel blank, and then another $500 for Smith fees and shipping, etc. You're what, $1,000, maybe more, depending on if you have to ship the barrel out or wait times, etc. I didn't have anybody locally that could do it, so I would have had to have either dropped off or shipped the action. It was a lot that I didn't really want to take on. Versus swapping to the RimX, The action, I paid $900 for it on sale. The barrel was $780. So what is that, $1,680? I sold the Bergara for 500 bucks. So I'm all in on the platform switch for roughly $1,200, right? I did buy another magazine, so a little more expensive than that, but I feel like I've got a significantly better product now than if I would have just put that $1,000 plus into the Bergara. So I think if you are in a similar situation, definitely take a look at all the options. You know, changing platforms to that next level up may not be as expensive as you think if you're willing to let go of your current gear. You know, just to kind of summarize my thoughts on the platforms and switching, and I've had people ask me, you know, should I start with the Bergara? Should I start with the CZ? Should I start with the RimX and just go straight into it and put the money in? Personally, I don't regret starting with a lower tier rifle, right? They're plenty competitive. The CZ MTRs, the Bergara B14Rs, even the Ruger RPRs, maybe not so much. I definitely put the Ruger beneath the Bergara and the CZ, sorry, Ruger fans. But you can do a lot with those rifles, you know? And the thing with these guns is they're gamer guns, right? That you can develop a lot of bad habits with these guns because they're competition guns, because they weigh 23 pounds, because they've got such light trigger pulls. If you don't take the time to develop the fundamentals, you're never going to truly appreciate what these platforms are capable of. So I was very pleased, you know, looking back, that I started with just a stock factory production Bergara. I put some nice glass on it from the get-go. So I did start out in open glass, but I kind of figured out, okay, balance is a really big name in the game. Okay, having a flat forearm to kind of settle into the bag, shooter fundamentals, breathing, squaring up on the rifle, making sure your rifle's level, good trigger press, follow through. All of those things come into play. A rifle like this can help cover up flaws in your fundamentals, whereas if you're shooting a factory gun that isn't weighted and balanced and everything, it highlights the issues with those fundamentals. In my mind, shooting that factory gun allows you to become a better shooter and better appreciate what these guns are capable of. You know, how would I rate it? How would I score this? Well, I don't know that it's fair to do that because I haven't owned a CZ, I haven't owned a Voodoo, so I haven't spent as much time behind those platforms as I do this. But if we're talking in terms of switching from the Bergara to the RimX, totally satisfied. Very happy with how this rifle is set up currently. I don't feel like I'm lacking in any department when I go and shoot a match. It's definitely on me at this point. So yeah, very, very happy. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. If you've made it this far, let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and I will catch you guys next time. Thanks again.